Thank you for sharing your experience with our class, Colonel Clark. I actually talk about you in class quite a bit. There's actually someone in class that thinks he wants to run with you. I'll give you his name after this conversation.
Sounds good. Yeah, sounds good, Dr. Thomas.
So I would like you to introduce yourself first.
Yeah, so I'm Lieutenant Colonel Nick Clark. I'm in the math department. I've been in the math department since 2018, and I previously taught from 2011 to 2013.
And would you share with us a little bit of what you did with COVID-19 models over the summer?
Sure. So just kind of background, in March, I was brought onto the superintendent's staff, and he was looking for a way to sort of get ahead of the problem. He felt like he was reacting to the data and didn't really know what COVID was going to turn into, and he wanted to be able to have something to plan against. And so we built out some initial models for him that kind of looked a couple weeks out, and he was really happy with that. And he said, hey, it's great because now we can start making decisions as opposed to reacting to what we read in the news. So because he was happy with that, he offered us down to Army North, or R North, which is in Fort Sam, Houston, San Antonio. So that's the Army component that's in charge of all of North America. So any force being deployed in North America falls underneath R North. So oftentimes they work hurricanes, they work disaster relief. Well, with COVID, what they were interested in is figuring out where would military resources be used to help mitigate the hospitals being overrun. So it's mostly the deployment of medical assets. So once we got down to R North, we started building out the same models. And again, by looking forward and understanding how these models are going to spread in space and time, it allowed R North to be able to forecast where they were going to have to put military resources, where they're going to have to put military doctors, where they're going to have to build facilities, because it takes a long time for us to deploy these forces. So if we're just sitting and reacting, we're only a week behind. That's not quick enough in order to anticipate where we actually have to go.
I think you already answered this question, but we're studying long-term behavior now. We're on the section on long-term behavior.
Yeah.
And it looks like this falls under looking at the model's long-term behavior.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So it's being able to predict weeks in advance where this thing's going to spread, how it's going to grow. But perhaps more importantly, it's be able to quantify our uncertainty in the models. So when we have a long-term behavior of a system, especially a system like the growth of COVID, it's what we call nonlinear, or it's going to, if I'm wrong by a little bit, it may have some drastic changes for how wrong I am in the future. So being able to not only express what the long-term behavior of the virus is, but also to say, here's how certain I am. It could be this, it could be this. I like to think about it like the hurricane charts. That's kind of what we're doing. We're not saying it's going to be a set number. It's going to fall within this range or this range.
I told the cadets that this is actually what is really important because we have to factor that in. They just had a DLA last week where one group actually swung it was a bacteria model where they were spraying down and cleaning the room. And they looked at what would happen if instead of killing 24% of the bacteria, or it was 24% survival rate, what if they had a 26% survival rate? Yeah. Guess what happened? In that case, they went to, it went to infinity. Yep. And so that slight change in that parameter caused very different long-term behavior. Yeah. So do you have anything that you would suggest to the cadets moving forward when they're studying long-term behavior?
Well, again, I think, Dr. Thomas, you hit the nail on the head right there. There's going to be those critical numbers that if I'm over, creates very different behavior than when I'm under. So for instance, with COVID, we talked about the reproducibility number. If it's bigger than 1, you're growing exponentially. If it's smaller than 1, you're shrinking exponentially. And just being off a little bit on that thing can make some drastic differences in long-term behavior.
That's awesome. That's what I studied, bifurcation theory. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. And I think this will make everybody understand what we're doing, why we're doing, the why behind it, how important it is.
It's important. So I appreciate the time to chat with y'all.
Thanks.